If you want to learn how to build the latest and best longsword builds, you are in the right place. I spent countless hours playing with different builds and equipment setups to save you the guesswork. So ultimately, I can give you the updated max damage Storm Samurai longsword build. A build loaded with 40% critical damage boost, 70 to 100% affinity to maintain maximum damage, and can maintain wide sharpness easily. Since this is a meta build, I'm using an optimized Artian longsword which has an amazing stats of 225 raw attack, 5% affinity, and 100% paralysis element. Paralysis is still king when it comes to overall damage, whether you are playing online or in multiplayer. For the reinforcement bonuses, I do have 4 attack bonuses and 1 sharpness boost. However, I will not be suggesting these bonuses, but at least running with 2 attack bonuses and 1 sharpness would be suggested. Or if you decide to chase 4 attacks and 1 sharpness boost, feel free to do so as well. I know some of you hate to use Artian weapons, so you are always welcome to use the Lalabarino longsword, which is still viable when it comes to the current meta. This longsword's 200 raw attack, 15% base affinity, and long wide sharpness are still cutting edge, making this sword ideal in general fights currently. Zoshia's Blazing Raphael longsword on the other hand can almost match a Dragon Artian longsword's performance thanks to the White Flame Torrent skill. With a raw attack stat of 220, 5% affinity, and 200 dragon element and decent wide sharpness, it is still a viable option other than the Artian longsword given the enemy is not strong against dragon element. For the Storm Samurai's 2.0 armor sets, we'll be using the latest Raid Dao Gamma pieces, and the Ray Sandhelm Gamma will take the headpiece. Follow up with Nomino Shroud Alpha for the armor piece and Raid Dao Gamma pieces for the arms and waist pieces. Lastly, slot in Ray Sandgrease Beta for the leg piece. Equip Challenger Charm 2 on the Talisman slot so we can get free Agitator skill points. You do have 2 options when it comes to mantles, but the Corrupted Mantle is going to be our choice here despite the nerf. It's 10% additional affinity, 4.5% attack increase, and additional damage are simply too good to ignore. While if you want more survivability, a Rocksteady Mantle is always a good choice. A mantle that grants damage reductions, hyper armor, and protection from other elements, perfect for players who are still adjusting to the end game. Decoration wise, I'm running with 2 critical jewel 3 then slot in mastery jewel 3 for the last weapon slot. The headpiece will have a challenger jewel 3 and a sheath jewel 1 will be slotted on the armor slot. The arm slots will be filled with 2 tenderizer jewel 3s, another tenderizer jewel 3, and 2 sheath jewel 1 on the leg piece. Slots are limited this time since Raid Dao Gamma pieces are quite strong, so this is expected. Following all of my gear suggestions so far will grant us a level 5 critical boost for the build to have a 40% critical damage boost. The mandatory Master's Touch is suggested and deal high damage numbers per second. We do have a level 5 Agitator which gives the build a whopping plus 20 raw attack and 15% affinity when the enemy is enraged, which is more than half of the fight in most cases. Of course, a level 4 weakness exploit grants the build with 20% added affinity when hitting enemy weak spots and 15% more on wounds. Latent Power is a tricky skill and I recently made a video explaining Latent Power's effect in a significant depth while also sharing a full Raid Dao Gamma build which can hit loads of damage. If this interests you, I have linked the video in the comments or watch it later by clicking the card here. But to make it simple, this skill will activate when 2 minutes have passed in a certain fight or when the user accumulated a total of 130 points of damage received. When it procs, it will add a tremendous amount of affinity and reduce stamina depletion by a lot. In this configuration, a level 3 Latent Power will add 30% affinity and reduces stamina depletion by 50%. Latent Power will then last for about 2 minutes and once expires, the user needs to wait for a 2-minute cooldown period before the skill can become usable once again. But the 4-set bonus of Raid Dao pieces, Thunderous Roar 2, adds 90 seconds to Latent Power's duration, making it last for 3 minutes and 30 seconds, and that is a long duration. But you might be wondering, how can a casual player take advantage of this skill? Monsters are getting stronger and stronger with each update, and believe me, you can easily reach that 130 damage accumulation threshold when receiving damage. We all know how a level 3 maximum might is mandatory for damage builds because of the 30% affinity it provides when stamina is full. In this setup, keep in mind that when you use your stamina, the effect of maximum might will not expire right away, but instead gives the user 2 seconds before the buff expires. This build will allow you to roll once without losing the effect of maximum might, and the level 1 stamina surge helps this a little by granting 10% stamina recovery speed. At this point, a level 3 quick sheet is a must for EI counter masters as this skills greatly affects the sheeting speed. However, I know some of you don't prefer using counters, so there will be another build that will suit your needs later on. A level 2 evade extender is a great bonus for this build, allowing the user to reach longer distances when dodging. This is pretty useful if you want to position yourself better to hit monster weak points or quickly close the gap between targets. Unfortunately, this configuration has only level 1 counter strike. The plus 10 raw attack it provides is a huge bonus regardless, especially since you can activate it by just getting knocked back when receiving hard-hitting monster hits. So most of the time, you will be activating this skill without knowing it. The buff will then last for 30 seconds, so that's a decent duration, and not to mention, receiving hits will also ramp up the damage accumulation threshold of the latent power. The next skill is Thunderous Roar 2, which I mentioned already, but I want to focus on Lord Soul, which is another 3-piece bonus set from the Raid DAO pieces. It will grant the build the skill Guts, which provides a huge raw attack bonus of 5% but lessens the user's defense by 5%, which you can easily disregard. You will survive a little hit as well with a remaining 1 HP if you receive a hard-hitting damage when your remaining HP is past the Guts threshold, which you can monitor in your HP bar. Activating Guts will give you 5% more defense and plus 3 resistance across the board. We are about to move on to the build's overall affinity calculation, but before that, take your Monster Hunter Wilds experience to the next level with Mitch Cactus. Mitch Cactus can boost your progress by getting all of the best gear in the game with their 100% ban-free and legit services. Have thousands of golden tickets and armor spheres, or have the best decorations for your builds by getting their modular packs, or have thousands of weapon fragments for you to craft the best Artian weapons. With more than 15k positive reviews in Trustpilot, you are in safe hands. Use my code Samurai for a limited time discount on your first purchase, only for you, my lords and ladies. Learn more details by heading to the description. In this configuration, Agitator gives 15%, Weakness Exploit gives 20%, Maximum Might provides 30%, and the Artian Longsword gives 5%. Overall giving you 70% affinity across the board without the latent power. If you are a casual player, you will be activating latent power without knowing it, so you can enjoy 100% affinity. This is also the reason why I slotted Master's Touch even though you only have 70% baseline affinity. When it comes to damage tests, I usually test the damage of my builds by hitting the dummy 21 times and getting the average, while Agitator and Latent Power are active in the training settings. Food Bombs and Mega Demon Drugs are also applied to the test as well. Performing the Crimson Slash 1 and Spirit Blade combo, we can see that the DPS range is around between 2500 to 2500 plus after several test runs. This is pretty impressive since we are dealing more than 100 plus damage compared to the previous Storm Samurai build, but it is expected since this build has an effective raw attack of 546, and that is a lot. Now I mentioned that I prepared a second build which you can even use when not using the longsword. With a little bit of tweaking, you can use this build to play other weapon types, aside from the weapon types that use too much stamina often. Let me run through the build quickly, where Raid DAO Gamma pieces for the head, arms, and waist, while Numinous Beta pieces for the chest and legs. Use a Challenger Charm once again and follow the decorations that I am showing on the screen right now. Following my suggestions will give you a level 5 critical boost, Master Touch, a level 5 Weakness Exploits and Agitator, and level 3 Maximum Might. Then a level 2 Latent Power, Evade Extender, and Counter Strike. Recovery Speed, Elemental Absorption, and Stamina Surge are great bonuses as well. Additionally, you will have access to Thunderous Roar 1, Guts, and Zoshia Pulse, which is a great skill to regenerate HP over time for comfort. Having this setup, you will have 80% affinity even without Latent Power is active, so you can maintain dealing high damage with ease. When Latent Power kicks in, the build will now have access to 100% affinity. Quick damage test for this general build, we are seeing that the damage ranges from 2600 to 2600 plus, even stronger compared to the previous build. This is expected since it has a high effective raw of 556 attack compared to the previous build that I just showed you. If you are a longsword user, the biggest drawback of this build is you do not have a level 3 quick sheet active. But if you don't use counters, you can simply disregard this downside. But what if you want to use a full Raid DAO Gamma build instead and have access to even higher damage? Click on this video and I will catch you on the next one.